Right now, though, let's talk about getting a new boiler, but one that costs a lot more money than the one you've currently got and doesn't work as well at doing the actual job of a boiler, which is to heat up the water and make your home warmer. Well, let's talk about this because this is literally the latest government policy. Harry Wilkinson is head of policy at Net Zero Watch, former the Global Policy Warming Forum. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Homeowners in England and Wales are going to be offered subsidies of £5,000, your and my taxpayers' money, from next April to help them replace their old gas boilers with low carbon heat pumps. It's part of an almost £4 billion plan to reduce carbon emissions, specifically from heating homes and other buildings. It's a big part of our carbon emissions. Keeping warm, apparently, as human beings is a bad thing. The plan is from the government to have no new gas boilers installed after 2035. I would say good luck with that. We are talking about boilers which don't actually heat homes very much. They cost about 10 grand, and can actually cost up to 18 grand. So £5,000 contribution isn't going to cover all the costs or even most of the costs. And we're covering only a maximum of 90,000 pumps over 3 years. Do you think this is going to make a big difference to our carbon emissions?
Well, not particularly. It's a small number of boilers, as you say, in the wider scheme of things. The Prime Minister said this was all about bringing everybody along with the green agenda and making sure everyone can afford the green technologies. But it's actually quite the opposite. The rhetoric and the reality are miles apart. Only very rich people will be able to afford £10,000 air source heat pumps. And yes, they may get a £5,000 grant to help them with that. But that's still an upfront cost that most people won't be able to afford.
I mean, we had to put a new boiler in a few years ago, 3.5 grand, and that was after searching around an awful lot, and that was for a flat. I mean, most people, it doesn't matter, I don't care what you're earning, are horrified by the cost of putting a new boiler in. But at least I know I can be lovely and toasty and warm, in my home in the winter. But these pumps, low carbon heat pumps, we already know. It's not like it's going to be a surprise in 10 years' time. We already know they don't work very well. They don't heat your home very much, which isn't really going to work in a country that can get pretty darn cold for quite a few months of the year.
That's right. There was a couple who were spoken about in the Times, and they said that their energy bills had gone up by £1,000 a year after installing this heat pump. The rooms in their upstairs of their house were cold during the winter, exactly when they would actually like them to be warm. And they had issues with dampness on top of that because they had to undergo so many energy efficiency changes to their house to try and make this affordable. And even though it didn't achieve that, it still left their house damp. So this is an immature technology. It's not ready to be rolled out at this scale.
Yeah.
It represents a huge bung to the rich, albeit wealthy people won't get much benefit from this £5,000 grant because it's only going to leave them with worse boiler systems for their houses. But it just represents a huge distraction from genuine innovation, which can actually
that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, £450 million that's going to be spent on basically making people's homes colder, and as you say, also subsidising well-off people doing this anyway. It's not going to help the people who are really struggling for their heating bills right now. And again, all of this money going in, they're talking about insulation and things like that as well. Well, most people are more concerned about the short-term fact that they're not going to be able to afford their heating bills this winter. Do you think that? And the Business and Energy Secretary Kwasi Kwarteng is talking about these grants, and they've got a minister out talking about it this morning. Interestingly, chosen not to come on my show. I think we can all understand why. But there is a really big issue here. The government is focusing on all these things and handing out our money at a time when people are really struggling to pay their bills, and nothing that they're doing is actually going to bring our heating bills down.
It's staggering when you think of the amounts of money that are involved and just how much good you could achieve with that if you actually spent it effectively. We could employ nurses, doctors, we could give money back from all the money that's been taken away from people to fund renewable energy projects. That could be given back to people to help them to afford their gas and electricity bills. There are so many better things that we could be doing with this money than installing substandard heating systems.
Yeah, all I know is I'm going to be stockpiling gas boilers in my shed as we head to 2035 if they're going to end them. Harry Wilkinson, Head of Policy at Net Zero Watch.